said, is Brian Johnson. I'm from northern Wisconsin. I've got green and gold blood in me, so if you don't like Packer fans, I hope I don't start out on the wrong foot. I'm here on a mission. This is costing me over $200,000 of my own pocket. But this is something, as a Christian, I believe God called me to do. My goal is, when I'm done with this project, with this mission, that there'll be 2,000 deer that would have been wounded, but by the teaching I believe God is giving me, these deer will be killed. The result will be that meat, those back straps, will go in your freezers. And also, that meat is not going to go to families of coyotes, which would make more young'uns, which would kill more fawns. So that's my big, bold statement to be able to begin with. What I'm going to do now is back up a little bit, give you a little bit of my background. I'm going to bore you for a little bit, but I promise you it won't be too long. I started out as a taxidermist. From there, I started sculpturing my own mannequins. From there, I went to work for a company called Reinhardt. You've heard of Reinhardt Archery Targets? Well, we started out as Reinhardt Taxidermy Supply. I sculptured the line of final generation of all the Reinhardt taxidermy mannequins. That's where we sculpture out of clay, deer, bear, elk, different animals. They make fiberglass molds. They make the parts. They sell them to taxidermy. That was my beginning of actually studying anatomy myself, which is why I make carcass cast of animals and all this crazy things. I've been doing this for going on 50 years. Well, then what ended up happening is I ended up inventing a shooting system where I can tell you within a quarter of an inch, no matter how high you're up in a tree, no matter how far away the deer is, no matter which way the deer is turned. I can tell you and prove to you scientifically, it's patented, what the perfect shot is. So I was all excited. I went and presented it to Reinhardt. They said they don't like it. It's complicated. It's a Pythagorean theorem. It's too much science. People just want to shoot a target. Because one of my beliefs is this: 3D archery, and I sculpture all the Reinhardt archery targets, every one of them. I put the kill zones on. 3D archery targets teaches people to wound animals. And the reason it does is there's a static kill zone that you shoot at, no matter if you're up in a tree or on the ground, the deer's forward facing or facing away from you. So my system deals with that. And a little bit later on, I'm going to go with that. So when I presented to them, and they didn't want it because it was complicated, they're into selling targets. I'm into killing animals. I've raised deer. I've raised them in my living room. This is a passion of mine. So what ended up happening, I started Masterpiece Archery Targets. Have you ever seen that 7-foot Sasquatch? Have you ever seen that at 3D archery ranges? Well, that's one that we started. Long story short, Reinhardt came around. I sold Masterpiece Archery Targets to him. He ended up with my patent, but he didn't do anything with it. Well, then what happened 2 years ago, this coming September, I'm out in Montana with all this research that I've done for all these years. I'm not college educated, but I've lived in gut piles and blood and maggots and fiberglass and plaster. That's my home. I shot this elk. I've got it on video. It was out in the open. He went out there. It was a great story. We've got it on the internet where we use these. I'm a sculptor, so we make all kinds of things. We use this hat. Without this hat, we never would have got it. It's a great story. He went out there. He's getting ready to drop. I started talking to him because I'm a little emotional, just a little bit. I was so excited. He's going down right there, right there. I was talking to him, and he kept going. He didn't drop. Well, he stopped, and I said, okay, he's going to drop. I went back to camp to get some gear to bring him out. Came back. He wasn't there. Long story short, we couldn't find him. Out in the open, in the mountains of Montana, I got my arrow. I had a blade broke off, full of blood, full of bubbles in the blood, got the blood on his side. Perfect video I could show you. We couldn't find him. I was coming out of my skin. It was just a raghorn elk, but for me, any elk is a trophy. And the fact I hit him and couldn't find him, I was devastated. I went to some people I know that work for the Forest Service, that area they know, and I offered them $500 if they could find that elk. They wouldn't do it. I offered them $1,000. I ended up going up to $2,000. And when I say I'm fanatic on things, when I want to do something, I want to do it. I offered them $2,000 to find it. I spent 3 days looking. Couldn't. I got back to Wisconsin. I had an antelope tag. I went antelope hunting. I didn't want antelope hunting. I wanted that elk. I got back, drove in the driveway, talking to my son, hang up. Say, Jason, I got to go. I hear Jessica here. On my phone, I had a text from Montana. They found him. They got my elk. All full of maggots. He's gone. But at Christmas, I got his antlers back. How did he not die? This is the business. This is the world I'm in. And I was dumbfounded. I couldn't believe it. I went to Reinhardt. I wanted 2 years off to do the Anatomy Hunter, which had been dropped, my passion. Before I could say this, and again, this is a religious thing that I believe of God, he said, stop. COVID's about to put us out of business, as it did a lot of America. I'll give you 2 years off to do whatever you want, but you're going to lose a ton of money, which is why it's costing me $200,000. But I can do whatever I want. So they wanted me to just relax, but I live my life for everything I've got within me. So this is what I've been doing, and it's going to be, this January, it'll be 2 years, then I got to go back to work. But if I can get my anatomy stuff going, making money, I can continue down the road. But what I'm going to do to start this now, before we get into all these details, because I have so much stuff here, I'll overwhelm you, I'll bore you, or I'll make you start spinning. But so what I'm going to do that's going to be very interesting is I'm going to challenge you. We're going to play a film of 4 animals being shot. I did this at the Archery Trade Association last January, some of the most famous archers in the world there. I'm not going to tell you what happened. I don't want to give any hint. But here's what we're going to do, because I'm going to start a channel that's going to air hunts like this. And I might as well tell you what that is now. One of my goals to accomplish what I want to kill these animals is called the Perfect Kill Shot Documentation Project. I want to have 1,000 animals shot on video, like what you're going to see, where you can see a video. There's going to be a library for you to go to. You'll be able to go to the library by species. You'll be able to go to the library by organs, by where they're hit in the body. And I want it documented, not my opinion. Challenge me on anything you want. I'm not here selling anything. I'm trying to find the truth. So what the project is going to do is show 1,000 animals being shot where the arrow goes in, hopefully with lighted nocks. When it's harvested, documented where it went in, because as you know, cameras don't tell the truth all the time, where it came out, then when it's gutted, photographs of the organs that were hit. Because a lot of the reason that we are crippling animals is because 3D archery, which I'm part of, teaches people wrong. People have never been taught right. My philosophy is this. If you want to be the best archery shot in the world, you go to an archery coach, right? And he's going to tell you to take your group smaller and smaller and smaller. But nobody has got pinpoint perfect shot placement. Nobody's taught that. So deer are wounded all the time with archers making perfect shots. I see it on TV all the time. But they're aiming at the wrong spot because they don't understand the anatomy, they don't understand the physiology, they don't understand angles. And that's what all this is about. So when I'm done with 1,000, can you imagine going right now to a library and say, I hit a deer high in the back. You go there, you type it in, you get to watch all these videos with everything documented and the ones that are found. It's going to be a wealth of information that's called documentation, not opinion. So, and that's what I'm on. We got our first, it's been a year and a half, and we got our first videos up. It's taken that long on this week that you'll be able to see. I think we got 8 videos dealing with this and then explaining how, what, where, and why. So as we start the video, we're going to watch it, and then I'm going to stop it and pause, and I'm going to ask you questions. Because what I want to do on my YouTube channel is I want to challenge people into thinking by asking them questions. So we call it pause the hunt. As soon as the animal gets hit, we stop. Is that a kill shot? Is it not? How far do you think it'll go? What organs do you think were hit? Then you write them down. Then we give you more information. Then you can change your answers, but then there's a point system. You only get half as much. I'm wanting to have an interactive show that engages people, that's having them want to learn by having them be like me, have ADHD or whatever it is I've got, but they're interested, they want to see it. So we'll go on with the show. I've got to get out of the way here so you can see. Ready? Yes, sir. We're gonna pause it quite a bit. There's 4 hunts here. This is really cool. You're gonna love it. Okay, stop. Okay? All you have to do, raise your hands. Is that a kill shot or not? You raise your hand if you think it's a kill shot. It doesn't matter. I'm not keeping any score or anything here now. Okay, now, let's talk about what organs do you think he hit. Do you think that was a heart shot? Nobody thinks it's a heart shot? We got a few. We got a number of heart shots there. Do you think how many think it's a lung shot? Okay, we have some lung shots. Does anybody else have any other idea what shot it could be? So we've got heart and lung. We have nothing else. Okay? Okay, yep, this is going to go on. He actually, okay, yeah, let's do it again. We're also going to do it again in slow motion. So you're going to see it, you're going to get all the detail you want. Excuse me, though, before you start it, my goal on this is this. I want the viewer to have the same experience that the hunter has, because I'm sure you shoot a deer, runs away, I got him. Then I don't know if I got him. You start second guessing yourself. I want us to start out with that, and then I'm going to give you more information, but not at first. So go ahead, play it again. Okay? Any other thoughts? Gut shot, heart shot? Okay, what's that? Liver? Okay? Okay, we got 4 of these. These are all going to play through, and then when they're done, they're going to be documented for you to see, okay? So now you hold that in your mind. Let's go to the next one. This is an easy one. You can play it farther. I'm sorry. Okay, you can stop it there. What do you think on that? Is that a kill shot? Yes or no? It's a kill shot. How many of you believe that it was a double lung shot? How many of you believe it wasn't a kill shot? Okay, we have a few there. Okay. Does anybody else have a belief, if it's not a kill shot, what organs do you think were hit? He's there to get your comments. Does anybody really believe, or they think it hit something different, that it's not a kill shot?
All right, one more time. Good? Okay. So come to me in the center aisle if you guys want to speak up. But what I think happened, looking at that last shot, it looked like it deflected up at the end. So I think it actually went above the spine. I think it went below the back, but at the angle the deer dropped, I think it actually went above the spine. If you look at the bear there, you'll see like the bones stick out. I believe it went above the spine and angled up afterward, just from the way that the arrow exited. And it didn't penetrate all the way through, so I do think it hit some bone. But does anyone else have any input? Anything that you think it may have hit? Clipped lungs? What do you think you saw there? That's okay. We can go to the next video.
Do you think the animal is dead? How about we do that? Is that animal dead, yes or not? Most everything says, okay, next animal. Oh, can you back that one up again? You're going to see all these in slow motion. They're not going away. That is so quick, it's hard to say, but it was shot with a crossbow, and that's about what you get to see. What are your thoughts? Kill shot or not? Do you think that went above the backbone? You think it was kill or not? Well, we're not on Gladiator, are we? Kill, kill, kill. Does anybody think it's not a kill shot? Okay, we'll go to the next one. Okay, what about that one? Is that a kill shot, yes or no? I got one kill shot. Is that not a kill shot? It's not a kill shot. Okay, now we go through, what organs do you think were hit? None? Okay, none. Hit lungs? Maybe one lung? Guts? Anybody else? Now remember, all of this is important, because when you come back with all this knowledge instead of me just having entertainment and showing this, by seeing this, it's putting things in your mind, because when you shoot, you're going to remember some of these things of where not to shoot. You learn as much in life of what not to do by seeing people doing things wrong as much as you do by doing things right. That's why a lot of this is important, because if I show you perfect heart kill shots, they go 50 yards and they die, what have you learned? We already know that. It's all these trick things, these different angles, these things that don't seem to make sense. That's what we need to learn. How many, let me ask you this, How many of you have shot an animal with your bow and not found it, but yet you believe you made a great shot and you killed it? If anybody has hunted, that has happened. And then you get left bewildered. What happened? It's my job to go on the journey to document, to give you those answers. Won't that be nice? Okay? Okay, let's go through. Okay, now we're going to see him in slow motion. Okay, does anybody change their mind by seeing that in slow motion? Does it look more clear? Okay, what do you think? Okay, there you see it. So let's stop it right there and let's hold it. Okay, so now that you see it good, how many of you think that's a heart shot? Okay, anybody think it's a double lung shot? Anybody think it's a single lung shot? How about any other organ? So what do you think he hit then? What do you think he hit? You don't think it's a kill shot. But the majority of people, you believe it's a heart shot. Okay? The majority believes it's a heart shot. You don't believe it's a kill shot. But now we get to really see it really plain where he hit it, okay? Okay, we can keep going. Isn't this exciting looking at all this though? Knowing the answers are coming? I think is there even a little bit more with that? Okay. Okay, what are your thoughts now? If you changed your mind on what you thought, seeing it again in slow motion, do you think it's a double lung shot? Most everybody believes I shouldn't say most everybody, but the hands will go up, a double lung shot. What else do you think was hit? If it wasn't a double lung shot, what did he hit? Single lung. Anybody else believe it's a single lung? I think I ought to be an auctioneer here. Give me 5, give me 5, give me 5. Okay. Okay, there you get to see where that is there. That is right, perfect, and they call it the vital V. I've got my own name. I call it the devil's triangle. It's perfectly right there. Okay, we'll go to the next one. You see how good that camera is, by the way? Look at that tiny hole right there. So what do you think? You still all believe that's a kill shot? You don't believe it went over the backbone? You believe it went under it? It's all hunched up in a ball like that. It's different. We're not dealing with regular anatomy when they're hunched up. And we're not looking at this here. I see the cheating over there. Okay. All right. Yeah, does that show that just perfect, doesn't it? Beautiful. Okay, let's go on. Okay, just keep clicking it if you can. Okay, now what do you think? Liver? It's a very good call. Anybody else? Gut? Liver, gut? No heart shot? Got to put a joke in there, right? Okay. Yes. Now we're going to start getting into the answers.
As his arrow entered between the 10th and 11th rib, it went through his rear left lung, diaphragm, through the spleen, through the stomach, hit the femur on the back right leg.
Okay, you want to stop right there? Okay. Now, what we did there, because I'm here to get you to send videos to me to do this. I don't expect you to inflate the lungs and do what I'm doing. All I want you to do is after you shoot the animal, if you've got it on video, is lay it on its side and show a picture where the hole is, in and out, and then when you gut it, prove what organs you hit. With me, I got to open them up and spend up to 2 days examining all this. 20 minutes left, or we just did 20? Good, thank you. Now, did you see there what I did is I cleaned the meat off the ribs, where the broad arrow went through, it was an Exodus broadhead. I left the meat on there. We count from the ribs going backwards. The deer has 13 ribs, and you go from the front forward. So we have to, since you can't see the front with the shoulder on, you count from the back 13, 12. He hit, going back, he hit the 12th rib. It was between the, no, he hit the 11th rib, between the 10th and the 11th rib. And people have watched this. There's no way people believe he hit a lung. I mean, people just do not believe it. But when you see that I inflate the lung, there's the broadhead hole, there's the broadhead hole in the lung, and we line everything up that proves it. Now, if you go on to the video that we have online, and we can't put a lot, some of it's too graphic, but here's what he hit. He went through the rib, he hit the lung, he went through the diaphragm, he did not hit the liver, and what happened is, I'll tell you the story about this. I was in the blind filming this. That's before we got a better camera. And I did all this bad stuff there. I came back up with the two brothers. The one brother was watching the hunt through video cam, through his binos. The other guy shot it. So I started asking them questions because it went away. It was obviously, from when we saw it, it went there, it had its back leg broke, and it went and it bedded down and it was alive. So they knew it was alive. So then I asked them, should we jump on it right away? Do you end up waiting? We've got coyotes, or we got wolves where we live. What do we end up doing? So they started telling the different stories. And they thought, well, I think it hit the liver. And I told them, you didn't hit the liver. And they go, we don't have the deer. How do you know he didn't hit the liver? Do you know how I know he didn't hit the liver? And this is going to help you on making shots to kill deer. Do you know why? Does any of you have any idea why I knew he didn't hit the liver? And when I tell you what this is, you go, oh, and it will affect how you shoot. And I can tell you why later. The reason is very simple. The liver is on the right side of the deer. He shot it on the left side going back. The spleen is on the left side. And again, don't you think as professional archers killing animals, we should know that where the liver is? It sets on the right-hand side. And I take these organs and I carcass cast them and mold them and all this crazy stuff. But the liver sits on the right-hand side, which is why I know he couldn't have hit that. But he did hit the spleen. The spleen is very thin, so you generally do not get that much blood from it because there's not much substance. Where the liver is the only organ in the body that is fed both by veins and arteries. It has more blood in it than any other organ in the body per mass. And I've got a question on that later. I don't want to bring that up now when we get into physiology and how all this works. But anyway, when people have seen this, there's no way people believe they hit the lung because the lung went back that far. Now, I'm going to tell you something else. He hit that to the 11th rib, and he hit the lung, right? 100% documented. Can I tell you that's not true? I just said I documented it. There's proof of it. Now, I'm going to tell you it's not true. You want to know why? We went the next week, and I videotaped him, and he made a shot on the 7th rib, which is 10, 9, 8, 7, way up here. Beautiful double lung shot. On the other side, and he hit the tip of the lung, and he hit the liver. Now, how can that be? That he hit the liver or the lung on the 11th rib, the next week he hit the same spot in the lung, but it's on the 7th rib. And this is what's so important. And you go home tonight and you'll laugh because this is brain dead stupid. If you're married and you watch your spouse next to you in bed, watch how their belly goes up and down. Put your hand on your own belly, how you breathe. We have a thing called a diaphragm, and the liver is attached to the diaphragm on the inside. The lungs are vacuum sealed to it. So when you exhale, the lungs are in a negative pressure, they get smaller, and they go forward. When you run, you go, that lung there can go all the way back to here. If you're breathing heavy and it's super inflated, so you could hit it back there and have lung. The lungs are not in a static place that anybody can tell you that's where the lungs are. They move. They move. And that's why me documenting where that's hit, he hit a lung there, and another one he didn't. Why is that? That's where understanding the physiology of how all these lungs work and all this stuff. It's really fascinating, if you're not, I'm not looking at it from a medical standpoint, I'm looking at it from a hunter standpoint, because that affects where and how we shoot. So, am I boring you with all this, going into too much detail or not? Okay, let's keep on going.
Through the stomach, hit the femur on the back right leg. Okay, my Canadian black bear, which weighed 230 pounds, was hit high and forward in his right lung. It cut through his trachea and exited out the left lung, and he dropped it 30 yards. Now, Gavin, South Texas.
Okay, let's that stop. Now, would you believe this bear is that bear? Okay. Now, what I did, because remember, my background is I'm a taxidermy sculptor. I'm a taxidermist, although I don't hardly do any of that anymore. And I sculpture archery targets and all kinds of things. So what I did, this is what I would do before I would mount it, doing it from scratch. Because we spent tons of hours taking measurements of this and everything, and the blood and the guts the next day after we shot it. But if you look on the inside here, oh, I'm over the line. Anyway, if you come up afterwards, the actual ribs, where it went through, I left the meat on when I cleaned them. So you can see exactly where in the ribs that arrow hit. Because if you're into bear hunting, I know this isn't bear country, but there's a thing on shooting bears called the middle of the middle. There's a lot of arguing, where is it you shoot a bear? Well, if you take a look at this here and you take a look at these ribs, I'll just give you a hint. The ribs on a bear are very pointed in the front, if you see how tiny that they are. There's another set of them supposed to be right here on the stage. Are they there in the front? Okay, yes. I'll just show you this now. No, this is the deer. Yeah, that's the deer, the backside. That's the thorax. There should be just another set of ribs. Well, anyway, I've got them in my booth, and it'll show you how small it is, which again is going to help you, because we'll see if you take your typical archery shot right behind the shoulder on a deer, you do it on a bear, the lungs are there. Everybody says where the lungs are. Well, the lungs are there, but they're smaller. And that's getting into what I'm going to teach later about what the perfect kill shot is. Okay? Now, here we go on Gavin's.
Towards Gavin at about 15 degrees. Hit about 2 inches behind the olecranon and hit the lower right lung, through the diaphragm, through the liver, and out through the stomach.
It was a liver shot, is what that was a hit. Now, I'm going to take a little bit of time to go over this to help explain this. Most everybody, when they see that, believe it was a heart shot. And when they see that it's a liver shot, they don't believe it. And most of these things, when I see them, by the way, I'm wrong most of the time too. It's not like I do all this. I know the answer so I can cheat, but when I watch them, I'm wrong like everybody else. But here's what happens on that. And again, this is very important when you're shooting a deer that's feeding. He's bent over. His back is hunched. What happens when he's hunched, instead of standing like this olecranon here move back farther as it bent down, okay? Do you see that? So instead of it being the reference that you're used to shooting that you go by, when they bend down, that leg goes forward, that can kick back, okay? The other thing that happens when they bend over like this, remember I said the diaphragm in your stomach and that moves? If you have a full stomach, and I argued with this with a veterinarian, he said it wasn't true, but he was never fat. I lost 50 pounds. When you're fat, you can't get your diaphragm to move the way it is when I lost weight. So when they bend over, if they have a full stomach, that diaphragm can be pushed forward by the stomach. And so what happens is two things with it bent over. The olecranon goes back farther than what you're used to, and with it being bent over, the liver gets pushed forward more, and there's a third thing. The liver does not set in vertical. The liver is set at a curved angle, and it follows the shape of the diaphragm, and the diaphragm shape vary whether you're breathing in or out. When you're breathing, when you're breathing in, taking a big breath, the diaphragm pulls back flat. So that's going to have the liver back farther, and it's going to actually be a different shape because it flattens out. When you exhale, your diaphragm goes in, and it takes, to me, the shape of a volleyball that you would put inside of you, and you push it forward. The lungs sit on the outside, but the inside of that is pushed forward, concave, convex. That's where the liver is. The other thing is, since the liver is shaped down at an angle like this, it is the farthest forward at the lowest part of the liver. So he's got all those things going forward. It's being pushed forward. The olecranon goes back. The liver is the farthest forward. So if you take all of those 3 or 4 things, put them together, you can get what the Bible calls understanding of how it is he hit the liver when most everybody looks at it thinks it's a heart shot. So it's kind of amazing, isn't it? Because it's like, well, he did hit the liver. That doesn't make sense. Why? So that's why I try to do all this research to try to find out why. So, okay? But there's the hole in the liver. We've got 30 minutes left. Okay, we're good.
Chase's triaxis buck is still a mystery. They could not find him for over a month, debating whether.
Watch this.
Sure enough, there he was on camera, long head cut in what would have been a double lung shot. At the sound of the bull going off, he dropped, turned hard to his right, and leaned downward into his right. So we are assuming that the arrow went underneath the shoulder blade of the entrance side, came out through the shoulder blade above the backbone on the exit side. But we are still yet to harvest the animal to be able to prove it. That's what we want to do, is we want to document.
I didn't believe it. I thought it was a perfect shot at first. When I first saw the video, I didn't see the arrow. My eyes were not, I didn't see the arrow kick up. Now, let's talk about that a little bit. I'm going to try to turn this around. You're not supposed to look at the arrows on the back side, because later we're going on questions with that. Oh, yeah, if you could just unhook it right there. There's just a screw there. There we go, thanks. Now, what I want to show you is the shoulder blade when he shot it. Instead of it being flat like this, the deer went down and angled away. Okay? So I believe what you said, that it went. Now again, I can't prove this. So my opinion is no better than yours. But the bottom line is the deer's alive, and if it was double lunged, it would have been dead. Okay, we know that much we can all agree on, right? So he didn't double lung it, but yet he hit it, which would have been a perfect double lung shot, but it was angled. So I believe because of the angle and him dropping, he went underneath the shoulder blade, which I find hard to believe. The other thing I want you to see is how far in the front the backbone descends down. The farther forward you shoot on an animal, the smaller your kill zone becomes, and the more likely you are to be able to hit the backbone. So what he did is he deflected underneath there, came up, and obviously he hit this and bounced up. The reason I could pretty much say that as a 90% fact, and I can't, 100, is because if he would have went below this, he would have killed the animal. The animal would have been killed if he went below this. It would have been double lunged. So since he didn't kill it, and we saw your observation that the arrow was angled up, what would cause the arrow to angle up? It would have had to have something cause it to deflect. So when it came down, and then you've got the movement in there, so whatever the reason, it came under the backbone, hit this, and ended up kicking up. So it was a single lung shot. Now I can't prove that, but if you get into doing this, it's pretty much a 99% fact on what that one was. So, okay. Okay, what else we got? Is that it? Okay. So tell me, what are your comments about all this? Has this helped you? Have you learned something that will help you hunting? Because my whole deal is not to come here and give you information just to tell you a bunch of facts. Who gives a rip? Everything I do has to be leading towards you making more kill shots, so you'll be able to contact me and said, you know what? I aimed differently and I killed that animal. If I wouldn't have come and followed what you're doing, I would have aimed differently and I would have crippled it. That's the mission, that's the goal, that's what it's all about. So if I'm just talking about, who cares about listening to somebody talk about anatomy? That's boring. Who gives a rip? It's only if it helps us as hunters to kill animals and not wound them. Okay, so now I can go to some different things. I got a lot of things, more things that you're going to want to know. But first, let me stop and ask questions.
So I have one right now, actually. So in a lot of these examples, we see the deer adjust to the sound of the shot, and we see the deer dip, dive, change angles, things like that. In your research, do you believe it's more beneficial to account for that on the front end and aim differently as a result? Or have you seen that gone awry plenty of times too?
My answer is I know nothing about that better than anybody else. Remember I told you in the podcast, I'm humble what I do? Here's what I can tell you. I can tell you where to put that arrow. The archery coach can teach you how to shoot it. But when you're dealing with judging an animal and moving, I literally don't know. And I'll tell you one reason I don't know. I take 20-yard shots. I do things different than everybody else. I take 20-yard shots, gimmies, and I do something else. You think I'm crazy. I always shoot them when they're moving. Everybody goes, they try to stop them. And for the life of me, I can't figure why. When they're moving, you can do whatever you want. They don't catch movement. They don't catch sound. They don't catch noise. And if you're going right with them, if you shoot a shotgun and you just stay right with them and you shoot, there's absolutely no problem. But I'm shooting at 20 yards. I don't take longer. To me, a 30-yard shot's like, whoa. So I am not qualified to answer that. I know the people in Texas, for some reason they claim the deer in Texas drop more than other animals. I don't know. But it's very common that they aim for the olecranon. That's the elbow on this bone right here. That's very common. But we all know, one time they're going to drop, another time they're not. So now, since you brought that up, let's talk about where you shoot on this. If you take a look on this here of this deer, I'm going to show you what I wrote on there. Can any of you read that or not? The Devil's Triangle. Now, why do you think I call that the Devil's Triangle? You have any idea? Because the devil will trick you into doing something good, but then he's going to stick you and kill you. The people that do heart shots, when I get into my teaching of this, there's two shots that I teach. One is called the fire hydrant shot. And the fire hydrant shot is taking the aorta off the top of the heart. That's going to be the quickest kill shot you can make. I'm not talking like in the brain or back, something crazy, but I mean for a kill shot to aim, you take the aorta off the top. It's a fire hydrant. Why? Because it's the largest blood vessel on the animal. When you hit it, the heart's still pumping and the blood gushes out. I've got a video on one that goes 12 yards. The problem with the fire hydrant shot, you're dealing with this zone. And when you're dealing with the Devil's Triangle, when the deer drops, a number of things happen. It's going to drop, and you have a chance of hitting this. You're going to have the shoulder blade. The other thing shooting here, if you're up in a tree, you have to come down, and instead of having broadside, you have a much smaller target if you're in the tree and you want to end up hitting him in the heart. The other thing is, when the animal does move, if I get this here right, do it on this side, instead of being upright like this, when they move and they drop and they go away, all of a sudden the Devil's Triangle becomes smaller and it's much easier to hit this. Now, there's a trend in archery right now that I imagine some of you know about, and it's using these single, I call them solid broadheads. Are you familiar with them? They're single bevels, a lot of them are double bevels, because they're claiming that you can shoot through any bones. It doesn't matter what you do, you ignore it, you'll go right through them. And I will tell you, you got an 80-pound bow, you hit it right, that may be true. But I'm also telling you, you're taking a chance. And you're taking a chance. The other thing by shooting this is the farther forward you go, remember that backbone's coming down. So now you have a chance of going through this if you're high in the tree and also hitting the backbone, so you can hit two things at once to cause you not to be able to get it. So, but I will tell you this, the people in Texas that I was down there with, because I went down there to be able to videotape hunts and to document this, they are like world-class shooters. They can put the arrow wherever they want. And they got all this prickly pear cactus down there and all this thick stuff. So they shoot these animals, so they kill them now. And I can't tell them not to take the shot if they make it. Who am I to tell them that? But I can tell them, for a guy like me who's not a good shot, my system is based on my patent, which I haven't got to yet. What is the largest kill zone on an animal that I can shoot at and kill the animal? That's what my goal is. That's my goal, was to find that out, because that's where I want to shoot. Is that as quick as kill as a fire hydrant shot? No, it's not. So since I brought that up and we're done with this, let me ask you a question. If I ask those of you on this deer here, I'll turn it back. Where is the perfect shot on that deer? If I were to ask you, and you all were to come up there and you were to put buttons on it, every one of those arrows is a story for me to tell, just like in this film, to be able to ask you questions. But if I were to ask you where it was at, here's my question bigger than that. You're all going to have different answers. You're going to be in zone. I mean, people know behind the legs. They've been doing this for years. I'm not coming up with anything new. I'm just coming up with understanding. Here's my question. We can put a man on the moon. We can do all these things. Why is it when you go on the internet every day or you go in a magazine, you see a deer and you see a grid on it and say, where would you shoot? Why do we ask that question? My question is, isn't there an answer? I mean, is somebody got this figured out? Is it really that difficult? I'm not college educated. I'm just a taxidermist in blood and fiberglass, and I was a chainsaw carver. I got to figure it out. I got a patent on it because it's really easy. Okay? So now I'm going to tell you about my patent and give you the answers to this where it's going to make sense. I just asked you a question where you would all shoot. And we could spend time, everybody come up, I shoot here, I shoot here, I shot there. Well, I shot 50 deer and I got him here and I got him every time. Those are all the stories I'm used to hearing, right? Now watch this. This is a top secret teaching method. This right here, you see this? You're going to learn more from this than anything I tell you. Now watch this. If I were to put that on that far wall down there, okay? You all had your bows right here. You're going to shoot at it. I want to ask every one of you, where in this paper plate would you aim? Because remember, I asked you on the deer, where do you hit the deer? And you all kind of give me looks. You don't want to say nothing because you make a fool of yourself right in front of all these people because you haven't opened up yet. But if I ask you on this paper plate, on that wall, where are you going to aim at it? You guys tell me, where would you aim? You aim in the center. Is there one person in here that would say they would aim at any other place in here besides the center? Anybody? 100% of the people are going to aim at the center. Why? Greatest margin of error. You could shoot high, low, right or left. If this is an 8-inch plate, I don't know if it is probably an 8-inch plate, that gives me a 4-inch margin of error, high, low, right or left, right? Common sense. You know what I did in my patent? All I did was take the heart, lung, and liver, find out exactly where they're placed. That's the catch, this anatomy, when it's moving and changing, it's not static. I did my research on that there to find out where is the center of the paper plate, the heart, lungs, and liver. Now, the answer that I'm going to tell you is going to be confusing because when you ask people where you shoot, they always go to the outside of the animal and they say here, here, here. Or they'll say you shoot where the arrow comes out and they shoot at the leg on the other side, right? Which moves. So how can you shoot at the leg at the other side that moves, and how do you know what angle is? If you take a look at what I've got here, this is a protractor, which we can go on later and ask questions, that I could turn this and say, okay, where would you shoot at a deer here? Where would you shoot at it if I turn the deer like that? It's not a static photograph in a magazine of saying where it is. Now, what if you're up in a tree and the deer turns? That's what this is all about. So we're dealing with horizontal angles, how the deer turns. We're dealing with vertical angles with you shooting out of a tree. Compound that with compound vertical. Compound that with the deer coming, you aim, and then he turns. Having to make that quick decision of exactly where to shoot it. A guy came up to me today. I shot when I hit it right there. I didn't get it. What happened? Well, he hit it right there and he didn't get it. He hit it right in the backbone. So, the question is, where is the largest kill area on a deer where you could shoot high, low, right, or left and still kill it? And the answer is going to confuse you. It's not on the entrance. It's not on the exit. It's in the dead middle of the animal. And that's what my patent is. So picture this. If you could come right behind the olecranon, the elbow of the deer, this mount isn't very good showing it. You could come straight up there. You could come right behind the shoulder blade, the scapula here, and you came right down. The heart's the front of it, right? We don't want to take the fire hydrant shot because we want to stay away from those bones. That's a risk. But we want to be as close to them as you. The closer you get to the heart, the more blood vessels you've got. It's just that simple. The farther back you go, you can kill them, but you have less blood vessels and they're not as big. Picture a marble in the deer with the heart in the middle of the deer. It's actually on the right side a little bit. Behind the heart, about 2 inches, 2.5 inches back. Picture a marble in that deer. Okay, can you picture that in your mind? Just in the middle of the deer, it's got a tumor. Where's the tumor? It's right behind the heart. It's in the center of the deer, directly below the backbone. We've got, what's that, 15 minutes left? Left? Okay, good. So picture that. So every arrow that you shoot is designed to hit that marble. So that means you've got to come in, if you're up in a tree, you've got to come in above the marble high, you've got to hit it, that's your center axis, right? And you got to go through it. That's what this here is about. And I got more of these that take you forever and bore you together about all these. But basically what this is, and I made this a nice fancy target. You see how cool that looks? You take a look at this here. This would be a cutout. If you were to take a deer right here where you would shoot it, you'd cut him right in half. I put this in the back half here. This shows you its backbone. This shows you how high you can shoot if you're on the ground level and stay under the backbone, how low you can go and be above the sternum. Because in essence, we're measuring at the right spot laterally on the deer, halfway between the backbone and the belly, the sternum. That's our middle axis point of that circle right there. But when you start going up in a tree, then every degree that you go up, if I were to put these on there, now all of a sudden what happens is you have to start hitting higher. And when you're done, you end up with this. This will show you right there all of those going through the center axis. This is the deer that I shot when I was 15 feet up in a tree, and I shot the deer at 5 yards, 10 yards, 15 yards, 20 yards, and 20 yards on the ground. Every one of those is the exact point of where you would enter the animal, so you would come under the backbone and you hit that center axis. And all of these all have references with the size of circles. The higher up that you shoot an animal, off broadside and level, the smaller your target becomes. So on all of these, see how complicated all that looks? This is level where your target is. Every one of these circles up here, like this green, that represents the shot that you can make if he's 5 yards out. That's as high as you can go, that's as low as you can go to be able to double lung it. Right in the middle of each circle, that is the perfect spot. Now, I've sculptured a target on this that I'm doing for Reinhardt that's going to have all this in it, but it's going to take a while to be able to get it done, because when it's done, instead of me teaching this is all theory, this is all talk. You need a target that you can shoot so you can practice it so you know that this is right. And that's in the process of what I'm working on. So, okay. Any other questions? I can go through some of these other anatomy things here. I don't want to bore anybody. I want to show you this. This could be fairly important for you to understand. This is a mold of the inside of the thorax cavity, which is just the rib cage. And this will show you how, do you see how skinny this is at front? If you're taking a frontal shot at a deer, I want you to see the first ribs. If you come here and see this, these ribs are all marked here. This is all fiberglass right off the inside of the rib cage. That is all the width that you have. It's like 2.5 fingers, all you have to go through there. It's very narrow. Yes, it's blood rich. Yes, it's got veins. I mean, it's a blood rich area, there's no doubt. But it's a very, very, very small area, which is why Chris, the guy that started these shows, could show you a deer that he shot that he went right along here and he never got inside. Well, the reason he didn't is, see how narrow this is in the front? And then his arrow just followed right along the outside of this. But it's that narrow. So, and I want you to see that's very important, okay? Now, another thing, to ask you a question. How big is the dead zone below the backbone? They call it no man's land. How big is that zone that you could put an arrow in underneath the backbone and not hit the lungs, not hit it? Is it 1/2 inch? Is it 1 inch, 2 inches? How big do you think that is? Because how many of you have shot a deer in the no man's land and didn't get him? Okay, so we got a lot of you, right? So how big do you think that area is? 0? These other guys, okay, what do you have, 4 inches? It's 4 inches. The other guy, what do you think? 3-4 inches. Now, I'm going to tell you something. I don't expect you to believe me now. We're running out of time. But you come over to my booth room and you want to know. I can unequivocally prove it with you with that deer over there, with a bear my son just shot 6 weeks ago, and I forget what other one. We have 3 of them. There is no dead zone. And one of the reasons physiologically is this, what you don't want to hear is, how are the lungs inflated in your body? One of the answers is the lungs are in a negative pressure on the outside of the lung, not on the inside of the lung. On the outside of the lung, it's a negative pressure, which in my mind, I'm not a doctor, it sucks it to the outside of the rib cage. It sucks it to up above. So these lungs, now here's my statement. You're never going to believe me when I tell you this. I tell this to people. I don't tell this very much because people, if they don't know what I'm doing, they think I'm nuts. Not only is there no dead zone, the lungs go above the backbone. Now that, again, I don't expect you to believe it. Now I'm going to make another statement. I think I'm crazy. What I believe, and I can't prove it. If there was a dead zone there, that your arrow went underneath there, it wouldn't make any difference. You'd still kill the animal anyway. Now, do you hear what I just said? Take this to the bank. Brian said, if I could shoot under the backbone and not hit lungs, I'd still kill the animal anyway without hitting the lung, right on through. Now, again, we're running out of time, but I'll just try to tell you real quick why that is. If we ask, why and how does a deer die when they're shot in the lungs? If it's for blood loss, we know you could shoot them in the liver and they can be alive a day later, right? I'm sure if you follow a gut shot hitting the liver and stuff a day later, most of the time 6-8 hours. But in a lung, when they're double lung, they die generally at what, 100 yards? How long does it take a deer to run 100 yards? I figure 6 to 10 seconds, it's game over. So how, if they don't have as much blood there, how is it they die that quick? And the reason they die that quick is that suction. It's a pleural membrane on the outside of the lung, on the inside of the ribs. When that air gets in there and it breaks that suction, the air we breathe is a greater air pressure than the air inside that negative, because that's what keeps the lungs inflated. It's not the diaphragm. Diaphragm's got something to do with it, but that's not it. When the air gets in that cavity, that pushes those lungs down. And if you shot above the lungs but below there and you put air in that cavity, it's still going to collapse the lungs and going to kill them. In fact, I've got a guy right now, this is a little gory, but it's true. He's a hog killer in Texas. If you know anything about Texas and hogs, they treat them like rats, they kill them, they throw them out, they treat whatever. So I know a guy that's going to kill 1,000 this year with the dogs where they grab them. What he's doing, he's stabbing them. They stab them with knives, right? You guys all familiar with that or not? The dogs, they have the dogs, they catch them, they do it, they stab them. They stick them in the heart, they bleed. He's doing video editing for me, so he's hearing what I'm saying about this mediastinum and other things we don't have time to get into. So he's starting to cut the animal without cutting the organs, and he's not having the blood loss where they stick them in the heart and the blood's all over, and they're dying quicker. And so I'm having do that. He's killing them anyway, so I'm not having anybody go out trying to torture these animals because they're actually dying quicker. But it's to be able to prove the point of how they die of a pneumothorax. If they're shot with an arrow, it's called a hemopneumothorax. So anyway, any questions? We're going to be at the booth. Did I bore you too much? Thanks for coming.